and welcome to Shell Point Today for Thursday, November 3rd. I'm Adam Brown. On today's show, we'll get a preview of an academy class about Middle East refugees. And the great people of FineMark Bank and Trust will discuss questions and the decisions we face during the loss of a loved one. But first, we'd like to remind you that this Friday and Saturday, you don't want to miss the Holiday Craft Bazaar. Talented Shell Point residents spend the year designing, crafting, creating, and enhancing quality items for sale, just in time for the holidays. This popular event will feature unique items along with specialty holiday decor, handbags, jewelry, three-dimensional paper crafts, special artwork, children's items, books, wood sculptures, tasty treats, and more. All are invited, so gather your friends and prepare for a fun day of shopping out at the Woodlands Commons from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. this Friday and Saturday. Also on Friday, before heading out to the bazaar, you can visit the administration courtyard on the island for the Friday Marketplace. From juicy tomatoes and other fresh produce, honey, jewelry, or fresh barbecue, you'll find it all from 8:30 to 11:30 a.m. on Friday, so come on out. Next week, there will be an interesting academy class presented by Reverend Raed Awabda, the pastor of the Arabic Church of Sacramento. He will talk about current efforts by the church to minister to Middle East refugees who enter the U.S., special challenges in helping families, and the brokenness that comes with strife-ridden displacement and adapting to life in the United States will be the focus of the presentation. Here's Teri Kollath along with Pastor Andy Hawkins of the Village Church for more insight.
Hello everyone, I'm Teri Kollath. I'm here today with Pastor Andy Hawkins, Senior Pastor of our own Village Church. And the reason I'm with him is because the Village Church is sharing with the Academy to bring us a program open to everyone at Shell Point. We hope you'll join us. Thank you for joining me, Pastor Andy.
It's my pleasure.
Well, I love the fact that every time you have Missions Week, so far, you've shared with the entire community a focused look at something that seems so important. How do you plan to have year after year these programs that mean so much to what's going on in the world today?
I'm not sure that we do all that much planning. I think the Lord does a lot of the planning because He puts sort of people in our path at the right time in the right place. This started actually nearly a year ago when we had a couple who have been working in the Middle East for many, many years, Daryl and Cheryl Fennessy, and they came to our Christmas, sort of a Christmas event that was sponsored by our women's organization at the Village Church, and they were transitioning to go to Germany and work with Middle Eastern refugees. Of course, that's been hot on the news, and the Village Church had been investing in that ministry. In fact, the year before, we actually gave about $100,000 to the relief arm of the Christian and Missionary Alliance that was used in the sort of refugee highway to provide sort of material support, and then also to provide support for pastoral care for refugees when they get to Germany. And so the Fennessys were working with those resources. So we're very interested in that topic. Sure. And so we asked them, who do you think would really be good to come and speak to us about just caring for refugees from the Middle East, what the issues are, those kinds of things. And they mentioned Raed and Manar Awabde, who live in Sacramento but are Syrian in their background.
Well, I can remember starting in the Vietnam era when all these horrible things came into our living rooms by television, and now we're seeing this march of refugees, and it seems overwhelming. And to think that you do one person at a time.
That's exactly right, and that's what has happened. And I think, fortunately or unfortunately, this is coming right before an election, in which one of the key issues has been immigration policy, how to sort of manage the refugee issue and problems. Those kinds of issues are very important and real, and certainly our politicians need to find reasonable solutions to try to address those issues. They have their level of concern, but the church has its level of concern, and we care about refugees. They are made in God's image, and we are caring about them. And we also want to make sure that we understand the differences between a refugee issue and the immigration issue. There's really two different things. But the Awab Days, I think, will help us sort those things out, particularly in this academy class, because they are deeply invested in the lives of many people who come from the Middle East, and both immigrants as well as refugees.
And they're going to be coming.
That's right.
The more we know about how to make it as seamless and smooth as possible, and also to see how someone opens their heart that way.
That's right.
You know, how do you open your heart when you say, love your neighbor as yourself? Who is our neighbor, and how do we get to know them?
That's right. Well, the Awab Days work in a church. It's actually the Arabic Christian Church, which is associated with our denomination, with the Christian and Missionary Alliance, and Raed is the pastor of that church. But he's also the director of the Arab American Learning Center, and what that does is it provides services for probably 400 or 500 every month, Middle Eastern either refugees or immigrants. And one of the main issues or problems has to do with integration in our society. I think that's the kind of issue that we see that is problematic in Europe, in which you really don't have very good integration in most places, and it causes some problems. Well, that's exactly what the Awab Days are doing. They're teaching these folks the kinds of skills in terms of how to adapt to American life. They're learning English as a result of this learning center. They're learning how to drive. They're learning how to set up a bank account. They're learning how to find reasonable employment. Those kinds of issues they're assisting. In fact, they're even teaching their children Arabic, so they don't get lost in terms of their cultural background. So they're teaching English to the parents and sometimes teaching Arabic to the children who are obviously going to school in English-speaking schools, so that they won't lose that kind of cultural connection either. So they're doing the kinds of things that are extremely important, and they're doing it because they love these people, because they love Christ, and that's the driving force behind it.
Fabulous. Well, once again, we thank you. We hope that you will take this opportunity to hear from people on the front line of the crisis situation that we have with refugees from the Middle East. Join us on Monday, November 7th, 10 a.m., Grand Cypress Room of the Woodlands. Please sign up at either service desk. Thank you.
Here to talk about what happens when you lose a loved one and the steps financially that you need to take are the pros at FineMark Bank. They are here on the island to offer support and help you navigate through estate planning, investments, beneficiaries, and more. Jessica Stilwell, Catti, along with Anna Smith and Dennis Landfried, spent some time in our studios to talk about this sensitive and all-important subject.
Hello, I'm Jessica Stilwell, Catti with FineMark National Bank and Trust, and today we are talking about what happens when you lose a loved one and what steps you may need to take. And joining me to talk about that is Managing Executive of FineMark on the Island, a familiar face, Anna Smith, and one of our private wealth advisors, Dennis Landfried. And we have done a seminar out here, presentation several times, Suddenly Single, and Anna, it's a lot of people have attended those, and just talk about why and what happens.
Well, I think here on the island we have such a unique perspective into our clients and residents. We are right in the hub of everything. We see them on a daily, regular basis. We're aware of what's happening in their lives, whether we get that information from the resident website. So we know when someone has passed away. We know when they've lost a loved one. So we can be that emotional shoulder that they need to help them begin to navigate. And so Suddenly Single really touches on that. What happens when you lose your spouse? What do you do next? Who do you go see? And so that's really what we provide.
And Dennis, there are so many issues that probably you don't think about until something happens, whether it's death or incapacity.
Yeah, it can be very complicated. And you know, what we run into often is that with many couples, one or the other is the financial person, and 50% of the time that financial person passes away first, leaving the survivor to navigate a very complicated estate plan, maybe very complicated investments. They've got retitling to do with Anna. beneficiaries they have to deal with now, an estate settlement process. So it can be very, very daunting to surviving spouses that really are not familiar with how all this stuff works.
And Anna, one thing I know you suggest is go slow. I think that
Absolutely.
When people think that they have to make all these decisions all at once, right when something happens, and that could be the worst time to make a decision.
Absolutely.
quickly.
One of the things that I see most frequently is that the surviving spouse rushes into the bank or shows up with children, and my spouse just died, I need to do this. And we always say, take a step back. Really, you don't want to do this right now. It doesn't have to be done right away. Take your time. First, deal with your emotions and those things that are immediate, burial arrangements, etc., and getting through that process. Then, let's sit down rationally and more calmly and talk about the next steps, because inevitably, if you do something, it's going to be the wrong decision, particularly when it comes to account retitling.
And another thing, I know that oftentimes the spouse is the trustee, and then it becomes overwhelming because you may not really know what that entails until it happens. And I know FineMark can act as a third party.
Yeah, we're a professional trustee and a professional executor or personal representative here in Florida. So we do this every day. And so in many instances, clients, children of clients or surviving spouses end up as trustee or personal representative in a role that's very complex, and we get the phone call that says, I don't know what to do, help. And so they do have the ability, they could hire us as agent for them to kind of take them by the hand and guide them through this very complicated process.
And I think the overlying message is you don't have to do it alone.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And one thing I know, Anna, and I know you deal with this so much, and you hear so many stories that are heartbreaking, are the scams and the people who are trying to take advantage of people, and especially at their most emotional point of their lives.
And that's it. They're so vulnerable right now, and they really aren't thinking clearly. And you hear stories from people, perusing the newspaper to look at obituaries, to try to get information about families. And they really prey on the elderly and on those emotional needs. And people will make, bad choices. And so you don't want to do it alone. You want to be very careful and be aware that those type of people exist, unfortunately.
Well, thank you both for talking about this today. It's an important topic, and if anyone has any questions, of course, you can always go and see Anna at FineMark on the Island, or you can give her a call at 461-5999, 461-5999. Thank you both for being here. I'm Jessica Stilwell, Catti with FineMark National Bank and Trust. Have a great day, everyone.
And now it's time to cover off today's happenings, Academy news, menus, and Village Church connections.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Happening segment of Shell Point TV. I'm Dora Robbins, and I'm here to tell you about all the activities that are going to happen today at Shell Point. We're going to start at 7:15 with Health Connections, Bend, Breathe, and Balance. That's at the Health Club on the island. At 8 o'clock, we have Men's Golf. That's at the Shell Point Golf Club. We also have at 8 o'clock Pickleball, and that's at the Game Courts on the island. And at 8 o'clock, we also have Round Robin Tennis, and that's at the tennis courts at the Woodlands. At 8:30, we have Paddlers Club, and they'll meet at the kayak storage on the island. At 9:15, we have Shuffleboard, and that's at the Shuffleboard courts on the island. At 9:30, it's Current Events, and that's in the game room at the Woodlands. We also have at 9:30, Ladies Match Play Tennis, that's at the tennis courts at the Woodlands. And at 9:45, we have Introduction to Beginning Line Dancing, that's at the Health Club on the island. At 9:45, we have Lucy Show Bible Study. That's at the Village Church. At 10 o'clock, Susie Q heads to Mantanzas on the Bay. Sign up is required. And at 10:15, we have Basic Line Dancing. That's at the Health Club on the island. At 12:45, it's Mahjong at the Library Lounge on the island. At 1:15, it's Samba card game, and that's at the Resident Activity Center. At 1:15, it's Spot Play Readers. That's in the Offspring room at the island. At 1:45, it's a health connection. It's King's Crown Fun and Fitness, and that's at the community room at King's Crown. At 2 o'clock, it's Stamp Ministry, and that's in the stamp room on the island. At 2:15, Grief Share, and that's at the chapel. We have 2:15 Photo Club, that's in the social center. And at 2:45, we have a Health Connection Ballet Fit, and that's in the health club on the island. At 3 o'clock, we have the Springs Bible Study, that's in the Springs Private Dining. And at 3:45, we have a Health Connections Yoga Fit, and that's in the health club on the island. At 4 o'clock, it's the weekly service for the seamstress in the Offspring Room on the island. And at 4:30, it's Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, that's in the Sable Room at the Woodlands. At 6:30, we have Pinochle, and that's in the Library Lounge on the island. And the last activity for today is at 7 o'clock, and it's Trailblazers Bible Study, and that's in the game room at the Woodlands. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow.
Hi, sitting in for Teri Kollath. This is Rich Nation with your Academy classes for Thursday, November the 3rd. At 9:45 a.m. is the Intro to Android Smartphones and Tablets. That will be in the Technology Teaching Center on the island. Sign up is required. At 10:45, the new Apple TV, the beginning of the future TV. That's in the Manatee Room. Sign up is also required. 2:15, we have the history of Shell Point in the Village Church, and everyone is welcome. Some open upcoming classes the following week that you can still sign up for. On November 7th, we have Middle East Refugees. God Hears the Cries of the Oppressed. That's at 10 a.m. At 1:15 in the afternoon, the interwar years from 1918 to 1939. This is part 5 in the Social Center. On Wednesday, November the 9th, digital painting on the iPad. That's in the Technology Teaching Center on the island. At 10:15, Identity Theft, More Than a Financial Risk. This will be presented in the Village Church. And at 1 p.m., Intermediate Bridge will be in the game room. Sign up is required. And on Saturday, November 12th, we have the diverse and contrasting world that we live in, the Not So Trivia Quiz. Menus for Thursday. In the Crystal Room, the Crystal Platter is beef stroganoff over egg noodles and roasted beets. For dinner, you can have the Crystal Carving Board for $14.95. The soup of the day is garden vegetable. In the Island Cafe, the sandwich special is grilled chicken pita with a side tossed salad for $7.95. Dinner specials in the Palm Grill are ribeye and shrimp scampi for $20.95 or tilapia piccata for $16.95. All menus are available 24 hours a day at www.shellpoint.net.
Hi, welcome to Village Church Connections. I'm Andy Hawkins, the senior pastor of the Village Church, and I'm here with my friend and colleague Roger Palms. And Roger, you've been in ministry for a long time, and we're here actually to talk about something that is really a very contemporary issue, but one that we're going to address in a significant way in our fall focus, missions focus weekend with a couple of people that are coming. And you're involved in the missions committees. And tell us about the folks that are coming.
November 6 and 7, Ra'ed and Manar Awabde. Mm-hmm. Christians, Arab Christians. Mm-hmm. He grew up in Syria. He became a follower of Jesus in Syria. Mm-hmm. Then moved to the States 5 years later. They married, and now he pastors a church in Sacramento, California, an Arabic-speaking Christian church. But more important than that even, is they have an outreach to Arab-speaking people, Muslims primarily, through their Arab American Learning Center, where they reach about 400 families a month.
Wow, isn't that incredible?
Yeah. They not only teach them English, help them find doctors, get their children into schools, teach them driver's ed, help them drive in this country, but you know, they're even teaching the children Arabic so they won't lose their heritage. Mm-hmm. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. And so most of those, the Arabs that they're working with are refugees or early in the immigration process or something like that. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. Mm-hmm. And of course, the church can't handle all of that themselves, so surrounding churches are sending volunteers. And they're all involved in helping these people get adjusted.
Yeah, and of course, one of the great issues for folks like that, the refugees who are coming here, is how do you get integrated in a community? And of course, that's exactly what the Wabdes are doing, aren't they?
That's right, because when they come here, they have nothing. They've left it all behind. They're just broken, actually, and because they are, and because they're seeking. Raed says about 75% of the Muslim people are open to the gospel of Christ.
How about that? Incredible. And it's interesting how the Lord does this kind of thing, because obviously this extraordinary displacement of peoples in the Arab world in particular has opened up people to being willing to hear about the gospel and respond to it in a way that has not been the case for decades, hasn't it?
That's right. Man's evil toward his fellow man, God can still use to bring people into new life as well as a new country, and bring their children along to faith. And so God didn't miss a step on this, even though so many evil things are happening in places like Syria and elsewhere.
Absolutely. Well, it's a fascinating program that we have. The Wabdes speaking a couple of times on Sunday, 10:15 and 6:15 are our Sunday services. And then they have an academy class, is that correct? And,
Right.
and that'll take place when?
At 10 o'clock on Monday, the 7th, Grand Cypress Room, Woodlands. And he's going to be talking about refugees.
Yes.
Now, every person who reads the news or watches television knows we're right in the midst of it. So he's got the answers. He's got connections with people back home. And then that night, Monday night, 7:15, in the social center, we're going to have an open mic where we can ask him questions. He can answer. So we'll have this one-on-one with him. It'll be a wonderful opportunity. I hope a lot of people come.
I hope so.
Because there should be a great interest in what's happening with refugees around the world.
Absolutely. Now, the thing that I'm most excited about in terms of this entire weekend and the things that are taking place on Monday is how timely the refugee issue is, and how I think so much miscommunication takes place in the media about that issue on every side of the political spectrum. It's really important to have someone like the Wabdes come and really set the record straight about what's happening, what isn't happening, what can be done, what ought to be done. And of course, you and I both know there's a difference between the state and the church.
That's right.
And the state has a responsibility to sort out its immigration policy and follow the law and those kinds of things. But the church really does have a responsibility to minister to refugees. Whether they're here or whether they're there, no matter where they are, the church has a responsibility. And that's what we're going to see, isn't it?
That's right. And as you know, the Village Church is involved with refugees in Europe now.
Right.
I mean, we'd love to be involved right here, but there is a church in Palm Beach, West Palm Beach, Florida, that is ministering to Arabs and Muslim people.
That's right.
So it's an Arabic-speaking church. Yeah. Raed would love to have more centers around, as many as 70, he says, but there's an association that he's working with, and they're reaching out to people and helping them at every level of their lives.
Yeah, I can't imagine people here not being very interested in this topic, regardless of the politics of the thing. The compassion that we need to show as believers in Christ toward those who are disenfranchised and who are displaced is really extraordinarily important and extremely timely. So we're looking forward to it.
That's right, we are.
Okay, that's the Fall Missions Focus. It takes place on November 6 and 7. That's Sunday at 10:15 and 6:15 are Sunday services. And then on November 7th at 10 o'clock at the Grand Cypress Room for the Academy class. And we have a final time that we are having a question-answer open mic session at the Social Center at 7:15 on Monday evening. We hope to see you there.
Thanks for joining us. This has been Shell Point Today for Thursday, November 3rd. Please join us again tomorrow when Carol Clark of the Shell Point Medical Center visits with Michelle Tompkins to talk about a Health Connections class on the Chronic Health Care Management Program available here. And we'll recap the top stories from earlier this week. I'm Adam Brown, and on behalf of everyone here at Shell Point TV, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you again tomorrow.